for the German government. At least you were that also over the last years. You were the driving force of digitalization in the last government already. You are going to continue this job. Marco Alexander Breit, the designated Director General of the Federal Ministry of Digital Transformation and Government Modernization. Give him a big, big applause.
Thank you. Thank you.
And we agreed that you start out with a no. Where you go?
I scribbled some notes, which I need because there's some important things I want to say, and I don't want to miss.
Perfect. And with this, I hand over to you for your
Thank
keynotes, and then we have a little bit of time for Q&As.
It moves. Thank you. It's always a pleasure to be with you, Stormy. It's always a pleasure to be with the Aspen Institute. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and good day. So yes, I don't know whether I am Mr. AI. There was a break in my career as a civil servant when it comes to digitization. I did aviation, space, security issues, and defense policy for a while now. And now I'm back in, it's like in The Godfather 3, right? When they say, the moment I thought I was out, they draw me back in. And this is what happened with the Ministry of Digitization now. One thing is of utmost importance for me in the beginning. We are living in difficult times. Everybody knows this. And we are living in difficult times for one sole reason. And this is because a lot of the things we thought we could actually be sure about and think about other things because we have mental capacity to work on our lives and our jobs and whatever. And some of these things we thought we can be sure about are in turmoil right now. And one of these things is multilateralism. Why is that so? Because there's countries on this globe that try to move borders with war again. It didn't happen for a long while, especially not in Europe, especially not in, it happens all over the place in a lot of countries on the globe, of course. But it didn't happen with democracies that come under turmoil or that come under pressure and become the targets and victims of war, of global superpowers for a long while, and this is something we have actually forgotten to think and talk about. And at the same time, some of our instruments, which multilateralism needs to actually be impactful, are under turmoil too, or under pressure too, like the United Nations, like the European Union, like G7, G20, G77, a lot of these bodies that we thought where we can meet and negotiate things are shaken by national interests that are moving more towards the I want to do what I want to do and I don't care about you what you want angle. And this is a globally difficult. It's a difficult time, and it puts us into a position where we as a democracy should be actually working strongly and closely together, especially the US and Germany, and especially the US and the European Union. Why is that so? Because I think when we will be talking about AI, you will be talking about digital technologies, we'll be talking about other things, security policy especially, but there is this moment in time where the soft and the hard power, if you take these both concepts into account, are still with the democracies. And I say are still, because it's not God-given and it's not forever set in stone. And we can now decide together that how we want to shape technologies like AI. We can now talk how we want to shape multilateralism again. And I think it's of utmost importance that especially the US and Germany cooperate in these matters. When it comes to the relations of the US and Germany, of course, I was in Washington, I was in Colorado Springs on the Space Summit in April, and a lot of the people you were talking to were actually talking about trade tariffs after like 10 seconds. And a lot of these people don't really understand, and it was especially the American small and medium enterprises that I was talking to, don't really understand why we are not negotiating things that, as I've mentioned before, we actually were pretty sure about, that this is like we are partners, trade partners, right? And I think we should channel our mental capacity, our political capacity, as I mentioned, into cooperation and less into negotiations that actually might bring more harm than they do good. And one of the funny things that I noticed when I was back in the chair of a digital technology policymaker was that I was was confronted with the opinion that the Digital Services Act, the Digital Markets Act, the AI Act, and the Data Act are actually kind of non-tariffal trade barriers that the European Union sets up to impede US companies. The funny thing is that the German small and medium enterprises tell me that the AI Act, the DSA, the DMA not, okay, but the DSA, the AI Act, and of course the Data Act are actually impeding them way more than the US companies. So actually there is a gap in the narrative. And this is something that we, as policymakers, should obviously take into account. But obviously, there is a shift in the narratives, again, that are entangled with the tariff debate, that are entangled with the non-tariff trade barriers debate, that we actually don't really need. And we should, as I mentioned, channel our strengths together to forge a way forward when it comes to the global governance of these new technologies. AI especially, I was thinking a lot about the comparison between AI and nuclear power. And obviously, there is huge differences. But there is one thing that nuclear power and nuclear armament and AI have in common. And this is they both ask for global governance. Because it does not matter if you are in France, when in Germany something happens with nuclear power. It does not matter when you are in France, when in Germany happens a huge incident that is based on AI, for example, a power outage that is because of an AI cyber attack. So what I try to say is there is effects on third countries that we actually need to take into account and why we should ask for a global governance of AI and not solely for EU governance, for German governments, for US governance. And again, this is something especially democracies should tackle together. So, before we get into the discussion, Stormy, I would like to invite you maybe to ask a question or two. If it's perfectly fine, or if it's fine with the schedule, I'm happy to take them. But I want to emphasize once more that we might not agree on every step. But it's important for the US and for Germany that we walk a common path. And not only walk that common path, that we do so as allies, as trade partners, and especially, and I mean that seriously because I'm a transatlanticist by heart, as friends. Thank you.
This is perfect. Maybe you want to join me here in those comfortable chairs, not the hot chair.
Not the hot chair, yeah.
Not the hot chair. But I also promise not to throw any curveballs. You were just in the United States, you said, in April, in the beautiful Colorado.
It is beautiful.
Springs, which also has hot springs.
Yeah, okay, I didn't notice that.
You probably didn't have any time to do any sightseeing, did you?
There was actually time, but it was so super cold on the Colorado Springs, on the mountains close to Colorado Springs, that I was just taking the time to do some sightseeing where it's actually warm. It is very nice there, but it is very cold in the hills.
So you also didn't see any bears?
No, I didn't see any bears. I would have shown photos already.
Because the wilderness can be a dangerous terrain.
Yeah. I noticed that even in San Francisco, that if you leave the city's boundaries, then that you are encountering wild species of animals that you would not expect in actually a very crowded, populated area.
Yeah. So would you say that the transatlantic partnership or relationship has also become a dangerous terrain, which we have to maneuver in a different way? It
is politically dangerous because, as I mentioned, I think that we need to talk a lot together because there is a lot of things to talk about. And bad things always happen when people don't talk enough. So what I try to say is that I think everything will be fine if we sit down, everybody brings his points to the table, and we start negotiating as friends, as allies, because we have common goals. But I understand that some approaches are more strategic communication than others, but I took the relieving feeling from the Chancellor's visit in Washington that we are on a very good path together.
When we talk to each other, or even more when we not talk to each other, there can be a lot of misunderstanding. Yes. In your discussions with your partners on the other side of the Atlantic, what would you say are the biggest misunderstandings where we do not talk with each other, but like don't meet each other in our discussions?
That is a very difficult question and dangerous for me because, like half a year ago, I would have said I'm just a civil servant, but now I seem to be a political civil servant. Okay, so yes, I think the Digital Services Act, as an act, and the whole misunderstanding what exactly free speech is in Europe and what exactly free speech is in the US, and how exactly Germany tackles free speech with this, with the basic law and other stuff. This might be one of the biggest misunderstandings because it is very basic, as it is a misunderstanding on how democracies should work. And when you tell your friend and ally, look, I don't think that this is democratic anymore. And this is something that I think that there's probably the most dangerous misunderstanding right now. But this is just my personal opinion.
Is this something, those misunderstandings, do they impede cooperation, or can you, in your field, or can you separate some things? I mean, we do know that we do have currently diverging views on how to tackle disinformation and the disinformation environment, for example. But there seems to be some room for cooperation on cyber issues, for example. So can you separate those issues? Can you move on one and leave the other to the side?
I think you can if you just sit down and listen for a second to what the other side really has to say, right? Look at AI. Everybody's talking about deepfakes. And deepfakes are as old as pictures are. In the beginning of the 20th century, Joseph Stalin took there was a picture of Joseph Stalin walking down, I think it's a dockside, but I'm not sure. And there were 7 people with him. And slowly progressing, because he got them killed or exiled, all of a sudden there was just 2 in the same picture. You know, because they worked on that picture, and it was actually a deepfake. And there was a lot of deepfakes when it comes to Soviet Union photography, and obviously it's the same kind of technology that was used in all non-democratic regimes when they did things like that. So is deepfake something new? No, it's not. AI-powered deepfakes are more dangerous for a lot of reasons. I think the distribution channel of social media is way faster than what was newspapers in a certain country that never left their borders were. B, the thing is that the way we communicate is way more hostile nowadays. So you see a picture on an X, you just retweet it and say, is this true? Which is like the most dumb question ever, because you might be spreading disinformation, even asking, is this true, while you're spreading the misinformation. So, but what I mean is, the technology might be new, the concept is not new, and if we want to tackle this, the dangers that this AI-powered disinformation, deepfake stuff has, then we need global AI governance again. And to be very frank, there was this concept called watermarks on photos and videos. I do not really believe in watermarking when it comes to the actual social media footage, but at least the BBC, the ARD, or MSNBC, CNN, these guys should use maybe only watermarked photos and videos, so they can be very sure and can tell the audience, look, this is true. This is an actual true footage. This is actual true news. So this might be a difference. And who do you need for this? Obviously, not the software companies, only the hardware companies. A lot of the photos are being taken by an iPhone. So Apple could actually invent the watermarking on the process when you take an iPhone shot, right? Why not? So what I try to say is there is things on the global policy level that how you can address these things, but there is, on the other hand, the tech level where you can address these things. It's never a problem that is only solely can be addressed by political means.
One more question from my side before I open it up. Global governance. You said that certain issues can't be solved by regulation of individual countries or by the EU or the US alone. Does global governance really work on that anymore with increasing divergences between countries?
That's the second very dangerous question. I think that, as I mentioned, some of our institutions are under pressure. They might even be under attack. And they are under internal pressure and under external attack. But I think we need to strengthen these institutions. Nevertheless, some of these institutions really need to step up the game, because that the UN Security Council, for example, has a problem, is clearly for everyone to see, and not for the last 4 years, it's the last 40 years. right? It was even dysfunctional during the Cold War. So actually, you need that kind of body where the global superpowers come together and the medium, well, the French would be very angry with me, I'll call them a medium power. The medium powers are there too, so you can actually have this forum where you can talk about things, but that does not work as an actual governance body is pretty obvious. So
Well,
there might be need for institutional change too.
Yeah, and I think the UN Security Council isn't the only one. We talked about the WTO earlier, the World Bank, the IMF. Lots of things to do there, and I just hope that there will be a consensus on what to do and to move forward. And
amongst democracies, especially.
Among democracies, absolutely, absolutely. And with this, this is your chance to ask questions. So don't be shy. We have a mic as always, and please always introduce yourself. Who you are, and the mic is coming. We have the first gentleman in the second row, to the middle.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Sean Witcher. I'm a senior project manager at the Transatlantic Business and Investment Council. I have kind of two questions, one more specific just to your role in the German government, and the other to US and Germany. As Angela Merkel noted just 13 years ago, das Internet ist Neuland. I'm curious to see how the German government is embracing digitalization so actively now, but without an infrastructure, digital literacy that's sometimes needed to support that.
Yes.
So I'm kind of interested to see how can we advocate for AI when basic literacy at the Bürgeramt is already a big ask. And then my second question, as we look at AI and machine learning, obviously these are the resources necessary to put forward those. So for data centers require huge amounts of power, huge amounts of water resources. This is a problem both in the United States and in Germany. I'm curious as to what the US can maybe learn from Europe in this regard, and how Germany, a country that currently is battling with high energy costs, is pushing forward AI and the necessary infrastructure for that while also battling some large structural issues.
Okay. That was 5 questions, actually. So the first one,
welcome.
I am designated Director General for the Department for Digital Policy and Economy. And for the people who are aware of how German ministries work, the former Ministry of Digitization and Transport had a digital policy department, and the Ministry of Economic Affairs had a digital policy department, and we are forging these two things together with some parts of the Ministry of Interior to actually make a coherent approach on digital policy and especially the economy side. And this is what I'm going to lead. As of now, I'm not that. As of now, I am Deputy Director General for Security, Policy, Aerospace, Maritime Industries, Steel, and non-iron materials. Don't forget the non-iron materials because they will get very angry with you if you forget them already. Then this will change in a few months. So just I have not yet entitled then. So the ministry will address the other questions that you mentioned too, especially because we are perfectly aware that when we cannot really talk about interoperability and digitization if we have no interoperability and digitization in our own government and in our own approaches. There is a lot of things that are going on there, and I mean a lot, and just don't hide behind a lot. It's the UD wallet that's going to be, that our friends and colleagues are pushing forward. It's the question of how we address a coherent, or how we have a coherent approach towards cloud technology and data center technology that we actually use in the federal government. My department will actually provide the what Marx would call Überbau, the political narrative, what actually digital sovereignty is, and my colleagues will then do the procurement. So everybody does what he can do best, but we have a coherent approach. This has been before being addressed by 4 different ministries, now it's 1. So this is where you can actually see the benefit of having this one ministry without even having done the first thing. We talk to each other way more closely and not about along the borders of or across the borders of 4 different ministries. Your other questions were about data centers, AI, water, and other stuff. Look, I have a strong opinion about this because I know it's of utmost importance. I know that sustainability is of utmost importance. But the thing is that you cannot impede tech in a way like this. If you say, look, you can only do this if the power sources are climate neutral. You cannot address tech if you only say, look, the Abwärme, I don't know the English word for Abwärme. The Abwärme is already regulated, and the municipalities need to be ready to take the Abwärme of a data center. This is, if you do it like that, you will impede progress for like 10, 15 years. What you need to do is, you need to address these things as tech is needed by economy, by the society, and then you slowly forge the path towards sustainability. If we put the sustainability question first, we just won't do anything in the next 10 years. This is like, to be very precise, I think it's of utmost importance to have a sustainable way to address AI. But this question is not being answered by Germany alone. If you, the Chinese, just to take one of them, they will just build a few coal and nuclear facilities and power their data centers. And they will have data centers, and they will have data applications, they will have AI. And if we say, look, we won't address this until we have more the decision made about if we do nuclear again, God beware, that we take into discussion. But if we postpone the decisions until then we just the global value chain will have progressed way too fast and not taking Germany into account. This is like pretty much the worst thing that can happen. Because you don't want, especially non-democratic countries, to be more powerful in new tech than you are.
And I think it also comes maybe down a little bit to having a good business case. We have a Transatlantic Farmers Project where we bring together farmers from both sides of the Atlantic, 8 from Germany, 8 from the United States, and they work on one specific topic per year. This year they worked on land use conflicts, so food versus tank, so to say.
Yes.
And they produced policy recommendations. Anyway, so we took them, we had 2 study trips, one to Magdeburg and one to Colorado, to Boulder.
Okay, yes.
And we went to one of those, fantastic research hubs in Boulder. And they do have a supercomputer there. It was very, very impressive. For them and the surrounding, housing, and it was a business case to use the Abwärme, for example, and also to put up solar panels to then also, it was a really good business case. And that's why they did it. So I guess you can do it at the same time if there's a good argument for it. Then you also need a little bit of government help because sometimes that's also expensive, right, to go into that direction. I think we have time for a couple of more questions. We collect them and then we let you go. And I know that some of you also participated earlier on in the cyber panel. So please come in and share your thoughts and your questions. And don't be shy about it. Yes, please. We need the mic.
The limelight is pretty hot.
Yeah, it is.
Yes. So thank you for letting me ask a question.
Maybe you can stand up so that
Hello. So I'm Tavi. I'm a corporate student for IBM for government and regulatory affairs. And I'm asking this again because I think it's one of the most important questions of our time. You stressed global governance and regulation of AI. But how is this possible when US and China, the biggest players in our world, are highly incentivized not to regulate due to AI being the tool for future power? How is this possible? And strengthening UN institutions probably won't solve the issue, as you rightly pointed out. Thank you.
I'm not quite sure whether I would subscribe to the point of view that the US is not ready or not willing to regulate AI. I think there's different. This is a twofold question. What I see is endeavors to reduce the regulation of AI technology and progress when it comes to innovation domestically. Yes. What I see on the other hand is that obviously the US as a global superpower has a huge interest to address the dangers that come from AI when it comes to cybersecurity too. So I would say it's not an easy question of the US doesn't want to regulate AI. It's the question of what exactly. AI is a tool and a weapon, as every technology. It's a tool and a weapon. And I think they want to regulate the weapon part because it might be it might be dangerous for them too, but they seem to be less inclined to regulate the tool part. And to ask the second question, which you didn't really ask, but it's the most important one: how do you do this if China doesn't want to get regulated? Obviously, that's what I meant. If the democratic countries align on a single point or on a single view on how we should address AI questions when it comes to security questions, when it comes to disinformation questions and stuff. If the democratic countries align, then there is a lot of soft and hard power that we still have that others might follow. And it might be China way down the road, but in the meantime, there's Brazil, India, others. There you can step up that game and add even more soft power and hard power to the basket of countries that actually wants to collaborate on this. That would be. You need to start somewhere.
Thank you very much. So we are, sorry, almost at the end. I would like to ask you one last question. You have moved a lot in international negotiation fora, and you have met with a lot of colleagues from different countries. And all of us bring along cultural baggages, something which might also be strange. Are there different negotiation cultures on this side of the Atlantic and the US side, which we should take into account when we try to foster the transatlantic relationship?
I think that the Germans are actually the German mindset on how to address people, like being very direct and being very straight to the point, is actually helpful when it comes to negotiating with certain countries, and it's less helpful negotiating with other countries. Especially, I'm from the Saarland, so I'm half French, feeling half French. I'm actually both sides German, but half French feeling. And I perfectly understand the French approach towards digital sovereignty. I perfectly understand why they do industrial policy, but nevertheless, I have a trade policy in my mind and in my heart. But I think what you need to have for a successful negotiation is an actual people that actually can build bridges mentally, so they can empathically understand the other side and or deal with the cultural baggage you mentioned, that you know that the other guys have too.
And it's always good to know what that is, right?
Yeah, it differs sometimes, but yes. No, but that's what I mean with again, closing this, the debate about how democratic is Europe's fight against this information is obviously, it should not even be a fight. It could just be an explanation. And then if people really want to understand both sides of the Atlantic, then it might work out. But you need to have this discussion without having the end of the discussion already in your head.
Well, thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
That was enlightening, and we wish you lots of good luck for your new job.
It was a pleasure.
Thank you so much.